You know, it happens like almost every single day on the commute,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, completely.
Like you stop at a red light, or maybe you're just walking out of a train station and you see someone holding a cardboard sign.
Right.
Or it's a person sitting on a piece of cardboard on the sidewalk and they're surrounded by, a few trash bags holding literally everything they own in the world. And what do we actually do?
If we're being honest.
Yeah, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, most of us just look straight ahead. We roll up the window. We suddenly become incredibly interested in some random email on our phone.
Right. The phone is the ultimate shield.
Exactly. It is just so terrifyingly easy in modern life to develop this intense compassion fatigue. The people we see every single day, especially the people in the most desperate, glaring need, somehow they just sort of fade into the background.
Yeah, they do.
They become completely invisible to us.
Well, it's actually a psychological survival mechanism, when you think about it. Yeah, because when you live in a really dense, busy world, you are just bombarded by more need than your brain can possibly process. But, the danger is that this mechanism, it fundamentally changes how we view humanity.
Wow, yeah.
Over time, it's not just that we don't help, it's that we literally stop seeing them as people.
It's like we develop noise-canceling headphones, but for our eyes.
That is a great way to put it.
Right. We build this commuting filter to block out familiar requests for help because we just feel totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of it all. And that tension, that specific human blind spot, is exactly what makes the ancient text we are digging into today so incredibly relevant for us.
It really does. I mean, the context hasn't changed as much as we think over, a couple of millennia.
No, it really hasn't. But before we get deep into the text, if you're tuning in and wondering where this audio fits into your week, I just want to frame this up really quickly.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Think of our Sunday message at Agape Community Church as a three-part approach. So first, there's the live Sunday sermon, which is the big picture, preached for the room, for the gathered church in that moment.
The pastoral person-to-person ministry.
Right, exactly. Then second, there's the fuller midweek video teaching on our YouTube channel. And that's where you get the deep context. You can pause, you can take notes, study it.
Exploring it for depth.
Exactly. And third, there is this deep dive right here. This is your practical toolkit. It's designed to be discussed and applied in everyday obedience within your apprenticeship groups. We're trying to translate belief into actual daily habits.
Right, because theology that just lives in a notebook doesn't really do anybody any good. you know? It has to hit the pavement.
Yeah, it really does. And a quick note for you all. The development of this podcast content was assisted by AI, but it has been fully reviewed and approved by Pastor Florin.
Which is important to note.
Definitely. And we really want to set the stakes here because following Jesus isn't just a philosophy. It is an apprenticeship. It requires real daily practice.
Yeah, it's not just intellectual belief.
No, it goes back to Matthew 6.33. When you decide to follow Jesus, you are adopted into God's family, his nation, and his kingdom. And as citizens of that kingdom, which has its own real culture and heritage, by the way, we are called to seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness. So everything we think, say, and do has to be built on that priority.
Which perfectly sets the stage for today, I think. We're in week 6 of the series called Released, the Spirit-Formed Church on Mission.
Such a good series.
It really is. And we're exploring Pastor Florin's sermon notes titled Seeing Who Others Pass By. And our anchoring text today is Acts chapter 3, verses 1 through 10.
So here is your call to action as a listener. I want you to pause this audio right now. Go grab your Bible. If you have the NIV, great. But whatever version you have works perfectly fine. And read Acts chapter 3, verses 1 through 10.
Take your time with it, too.
Yeah, read it slowly and then press play when you are ready to unpack it with us.
We'll be right here.
All right, assuming you've read it, let's get into this scene. We just talked about modern compassion fatigue at the intersection, but this passage drops us at the beautiful gate of the temple in ancient Jerusalem.
And the setting is just everything here.
Yeah.
In Acts 3, verses 1 through 3, Peter and John aren't out on some specialized, highly publicized healing crusade or anything like that.
Right, they're just going about their day.
Exactly. They are just maintaining their ordinary daily rhythm. It's 3 in the afternoon, which was the traditional time of prayer. They're just going to the temple like they always do. And on the way, they encounter this man who has been, as the text points out, lame from birth.
And he's carried to this gate every single day, right? Like
Yeah.
he is basically part of the architecture at this point.
He really is. And Pastor Florin's notes make a brilliant distinction here that we really have to catch. This man was not physically hidden away in some back alley.
Oh,
Yeah, he was hiding in plain sight. He was placed in a highly conspicuous location where hundreds, maybe thousands of people walked past him daily. And yet, he was completely reduced to his physical and economic need.
wow.
People saw his disability, they saw his hand reaching out for a coin, but they didn't actually see him.
Man, that brings up a really fascinating tension about human nature, like our condition and our daily struggles.
Right.
Which leads us to our first foundational Bible study question for today, really focusing on humanity.
Right.
So ask yourself, what does this passage reveal about humanity, our condition, our calling, or our struggles? I mean, why do we do that? Why do we reduce people to categories?
Well, it's a documented psychological phenomenon. In the research the pastor pulled for the sermon, there's this sociological concept called compassion fade.
Compassion shade?
Okay.
Yeah.
Human beings are naturally wired to respond with deep, immediate empathy to one identifiable person in need. So if you're driving down an empty country road and you see one guy with a flat tire, your brain registers a human in crisis, and you're highly likely to pull over.
Okay, that makes sense. But if I'm walking through downtown and I pass 50 people sleeping on the sidewalk, my brain just sort of shuts off.
Exactly. As the number of people in need grows, like when it becomes a crowd or a massive societal statistic, our effective concern actually weakens.
Wait, really? It goes down?
It goes down. Our brains are metabolic misers. We literally don't have the emotional or cognitive bandwidth to empathize deeply with 1,000 people a day without having a breakdown.
Oh, wow.
So to cope with it, we start managing needs generally. We categorize people as, the homeless problem or the panhandlers, rather than seeing David or Sarah, or in this case, the man at the beautiful gate.
That is a really heavy reality to sit with. Our struggle is that we just so easily turn people into problems to be managed or just ignored entirely.
Yeah, we do.
But this text is challenging us, showing us that our true calling as apprentices of Jesus is to keep our eyes open for divine opportunities hidden right there in our ordinary, mundane rhythms.
And engaging those opportunities requires us to actually break the trance of our routine. If you look at verses 4 and 5, Peter and John don't just toss a coin in the guy's lap while walking by. The text specifically says they looked intently at him.
It's a deliberate pause.
It is. The Greek word used there is atinis. It means to direct one's gaze steadfastly. This is not some accidental glance. It is highly concentrated, intentional attention. And then Peter does something totally unexpected. He commands the man, "Look at us."
Which is pretty radical if you think about the power dynamics of that time. I mean, this man was probably used to looking at people's sandals, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Just staring at the ground, waiting for the sound of a coin dropping. He expected a sterile transaction. But Peter demanded a mutual human connection.
Yes. Emotional investment begins the absolute second we allow someone else's condition to affect our attention. Peter and John demanded that this man step out of the shadows of his societal category and interact with them face to face as an equal image bearer of God.
Okay, I hear that and I love it, but I want to push back on the practicality of this for a second.
Fair enough.
Let's look at the reality of modern life. Is every single interruption a divine assignment? Because, I mean, if I stop and look intently at every single person on the street asking for money, I will literally never actually get to my job. I'll be fired. My life would be complete chaos.
That is a completely fair pushback, and Pastor Florin's notes offer a very necessary pastoral nuance right here. Inconvenience is not the same thing as discernment.
Say more about that.
Well, manipulation can absolutely disguise itself as a need, and frankly, we are not personally equipped financially or emotionally for every single crisis we encounter on the street.
Right. So how do we actually tell the difference in the moment without just, spiritualizing an excuse to ignore people?
It really comes down to posture. Interruptibility isn't about being disorganized or being gullible. It is the disciplined refusal to make our personal plans absolute.
Oh, the disciplined refusal.
Yeah, it's walking out the door and saying, "Lord, I am going to the office or I am going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
But if you have a mission for me along the way, I am available to be paused."
I am available to be paused. I like that. And this brings us to another one of our core questions. What does this passage say about God, his character, his actions, or his desires?
It's a great question.
Because it flips the script on who is actually initiating the rescue here. The man at the gate was just seeking a few coins to survive until Tuesday, but Jesus was seeking the man.
That is the absolute beauty of God's grace. It always takes the initiative. God acts before we even fully understand the depth of what we actually need.
Right.
The man wanted relief, but God desired to restore a whole person. He doesn't just want to manage our immediate temporary circumstances. He wants total restoration.
And that transition from relief to restoration is where that's incredibly challenging for how we operate today.
Oh, completely.
Let's dive into verses 6 and 7. Once you actually lock eyes and see someone, the next massive hurdle is how to help them without causing harm or diminishing their dignity. Peter says, "Silver or gold I do not have, but what I do have, I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk."
Notice that Peter is radically honest about his limitations here. He doesn't have cash, but he refuses to use his lack of money as an excuse to just walk away and do nothing.
Right.
He offers what he actually possesses, the authority and the power of the risen Jesus.
I think about how the church tries to help today, and it often feels like we fall into a trap. We try to offer relief when people actually need restoration.
No, that happens a lot.
To use an analogy, relief is like bailing water out of a sinking boat. You absolutely have to do it. If you don't bail the water, the person drowns right then and there.
Right.
But restoration is finding the hole in the hull of the boat and actually patching it. If a church only bails water, eventually the volunteers are going to drown from sheer exhaustion.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. And historically, the church has swung between two extreme errors here, which the sermon notes point out.
Okay, what are they?
On one side, you have churches offering material help, bailing the water, without ever offering eternal hope. That just conceals the gospel and turns the church into a secular charity. Basically sentimentality.
Right.
On the other side, you have churches offering religious words without practical care, telling someone about the patched hole while refusing to hand them a bucket to bail the water.
Which just feels like contempt.
Exactly. As the Apostle James writes, what good is it if you tell a freezing person to be warm and well fed, but do absolutely nothing about their physical condition?
Yeah.
Compassion without truth breeds toxic dependency. Truth without compassion breeds contempt. Jesus calls his church to hold both of those together.
Man, this actually forces a real decision on our part, which hits our third question. What does this passage say that I need to believe, obey, or turn away from? We have to turn away from reducing people to ideological labels. We have to stop viewing them as mere threats to our safety or mere victims to be pitied, because both of those extremes strip away their humanity.
They really do.
We have to obey the call to offer what we actually have. You might not have massive wealth, but you have faithful presence, you have the ability to sit with someone, and you have the gospel.
And providing that embodied presence is exactly why Agape made this such a priority for the fiscal year 2026-27 ministry focus. Specifically, the initiative around care circles.
Okay, let's unpack that, because care circles can easily sound like just another piece of, corporate church jargon. What is the actual mechanism there?
Yeah, the mechanism is shared relational burden. Instead of one well-meaning volunteer trying to fix someone's entire life, which, by the way, almost always leads to a messiah complex and inevitable burnout, a care circle wraps a small, dedicated group of people around a specific need.
Oh, I see.
It's designed to care the way Jesus cared, seeing the person before the problem. It provides a web of support for seasons of need, focusing on whole person restoration rather than just dropping off a grocery gift card and walking away.
It's patching the hull together.
Exactly.
And when we actually offer that kind of whole person care, we see the ripple effect. Let's look at verses 8 through 10, and even peeking ahead a bit at verses 12 through 16. The healed man doesn't just say, "Thanks for the working legs," and go back to his day.
No, he doesn't.
He leaps, he praises God, and crucially, he enters the temple worship space with Peter and John.
That is massive.
Yeah.
He goes from being an outsider, literally stuck at the gate, to moving into the center of the community. He moves from absolute social isolation to belonging.
But I want to highlight Peter's reaction here, because to me, this leads to our fourth question. Is there a promise, warning, or example I need to hold on to or learn from? The crowd rushes over, completely amazed by this miracle. And what does Peter do?
He immediately deflects all the glory.
Yes. He asks the crowd why they are staring, as if it was his own power or godliness that made the man walk.
He points entirely away from himself. We have to learn from that example. We must never convert visible ministry results into personal significance.
Wow, say that again.
We must never convert visible ministry results into personal significance. It is the perpetual temptation of leadership. If you help someone in your care circle, or if your apprenticeship group meets a massive need, the glory belongs to Christ alone. Miracles and acts of restoration are signs pointing to the King. They are not spectacles to glorify the servant.
I see the theological beauty in that, I really do. But I still have a major logistical question.
Okay, Emmy.
Reading about Peter performing a spontaneous miracle in the first century is incredibly inspiring. But practically speaking, how does a modern church actually organize itself to operate like this? How do we build a culture that responds to all these needs without just burning out the same 20% of volunteers who do 80% of the work?
That is the exact logistical friction that the Agape Ministry Playbook was designed to solve. The playbook shifts us away from running isolated, frantic programs and moves us toward an ecosystem of apprenticeship groups and leadership formation.
But again, ecosystem sounds great on paper. How does it work on a random Tuesday when a crisis hits?
It works through an adaptive ministry framework governed by what we call a monthly rhythm dial. It operates on 5 steps, and the mechanism behind these steps is what actually protects people.
All right, what are the steps?
Step 1 is pay attention. You notice emerging needs in everyday life, like Peter and John noticing the man.
Okay, simple enough.
Step 2 is discern, and this is the magic step. You place these ideas on a shared ministry backlog.
Wait, a backlog? I mean, that sounds like a software development tool.
It borrows from that, yes.
Yeah.
Because what burns volunteers out is guilt. The feeling that every single crisis requires an immediate, frantic reaction. The backlog is a psychological permission slip.
Oh.
Yeah, it allows the church to acknowledge a valid need, to pray over it, without demanding that someone fix it by tomorrow morning. You don't rush.
That makes so much sense. It removes the false urgency.
Exactly. Then step 3 is plan. You move ready items from the backlog into active ministry with short, manageable horizons. Step 4 is serve. You release a team to execute it together. Nobody goes alone.
Nobody goes alone.
Right. And step 5 is reflect. You sit down afterward and ask, what did the Lord actually teach us in this?
So it shifts us from managing activities, which drains us, to stewarding opportunities. We aren't just consuming religious programs. We are releasing teams to steward what God is already doing at a sustainable pace.
Precisely. God forms his people through his mission. The modern assumption is often that you have to get completely fixed, healed, and spiritually mature before you're allowed to serve. But the biblical model is that growth happens as we serve.
Wow. We've covered a massive amount of ground today. We went from ancient Jerusalem right up to the psychological mechanisms of volunteer burnout and the Agape Ministry Playbook. But as we wrap up, I want to bring all these massive concepts right back to your own front door.
Yeah, right back to that daily commute we talked about at the very beginning.
Because if this doesn't change how we walk through our neighborhood tomorrow, it hasn't really taken root. Which brings us to our final question. Who can I talk with or pray for in light of what I've learned today?
That's the real challenge.
Exactly. So who is that person for you? I want you to actively identify one person in your life, maybe someone in your family, your workplace, or on your commute, who needs whole person care. Not just a check, not just a quick text saying, I'll pray for you, but real, embodied, interruptible care.
Someone you can look intently at without rushing and offer the grace and truth of Jesus.
And I want to leave you with this lingering, provocative thought to chew on as you go about your week. Think about your daily rhythms. Think about the routes you travel every single day. Who is the person you have seen so often that you no longer truly see them? What deep human need has simply become part of the background noise of your life?
Man, that is an incredibly challenging question, but it's exactly the space where the Holy Spirit loves to work.
It really is. We want to warmly thank you for making the time to participate and grow with us today. Doing the hard, daily work of apprenticeship isn't easy, and we deeply appreciate you showing up for it. For more resources, to find tools for the journey, and to dig deeper into the beliefs driving this mission, be sure to visit www.agapechurch.life.
We really encourage you to take these insights directly into your communities, too.
Definitely. And to get the conversation started in your apprenticeship group this week, take this specific prompt with you. When was the last time a frustrating disruption to your schedule actually turned into a holy opportunity for mission? You can't wait to see how God uses those interruptions in your life. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.